Pennsylvania wrestling fans, welcome back. It's the Upson-No-Good podcast, an ode to our fearless leader, Jeff Upson. TC, my brother TC Warner here with me. I'm Tristan Warner. And TC, it feels kind of like we were on a bit of a hiatus there. We did our first episode about a month ago. It seems to the general public that we've been gone for a little while now, but actually wasn't really the case. We did, in fact, record an episode right before the state tournament about, a week and a half ago. And I don't know what was going on with Jeff Upson's editing skills, but it's still on Rockfin if anybody wants to go check it out. At this point, it's, kind of irrelevant content, but we were about 45 minutes into the published video and I was listening back to it, just making sure it sounded good and, just kind of checking it out. And right at the 45-minute mark, it sounds like Jeff took a weed whacker to his computer. The most unbearable, blood-curdling, terrible sound. I don't even know how to describe it. Went on for the rest of the 15 to 20 minutes that we were talking. So, if anybody wants to go check it out at your own risk, more so just to see how terrible of an editing job Jeff did, more so than anything that we spoke of that was actually important, I would say it's might be worth a listen.
And that comes down to the effort of Upson because keep in mind that his little 6 part series of, the previews of the state tournament was uploaded very quickly and sounded flawless, honestly. The highest of quality of audio. And then you get to our audio and he didn't even notice it. You had to bring it up. And then once you listen to it, didn't seem concerned at all that it sounded like there was a Viking horn going off into the mic. And kind of just said, to HE
too bad
hockey sticks with it. Yeah. Hey,
said I don't have time.
Some and
yeah.
But almost, so lazy that he didn't even feel like to delete it. He's just like, all right, it's just up there. Like, just talk about just a horrible product. Yeah, just disappointed at him. Really.
Yeah, it's either that he wanted to make an example of us, which he did. Well done, kudos. Yeah. Or just total sheer lack of effort and just slothness on his part. Just kind of gross effort to just leave us out there like that, and just to leave that product still sitting on his PA Power Wrestling interface. So we'll move on from that, and hopefully this episode makes it up to the internet and maybe with some decent sound quality. But that remains to be seen. We're not going to take it for granted, this opportunity to get on the airwaves here. So let's talk a little bit about, we have to start every episode with a Jeff story. We're kind of running out already after like episode 2 now because, a lot of them are just not that funny. But I think it's worth bringing up that I think as you dubbed him, TC, the patriarch of PA Power Wrestling, Jeff Upson, gets a little invitation to go, snuggle up to the New Jersey boys over at the Zingos wrestling tournament over at Rutgers, and I don't like what I'm seeing. He comes back to do his PA Power States Preview podcast wearing a Rutgers t-shirt. He's decked out in the gear. I felt like there might have been a little bit of hair gel in there that was not previously there. He might have, copied that off of some of those Jersey guys. I'm a little questionable on what I'm seeing from the guy. I think he might be turning to the dark side.
Right. Guy, goes to the Zingos and then he comes back acting brand new. And, for the people that know and have seen him, at his worst, we know that this is just a cop-out. And to think that, that this guy's got the audacity to, be the face of Pennsylvania Power, and then, just the littlest slight of affection from the Jersey boys at the Zingo Classic. And here this guy is just pretty much just disowning Pennsylvania. He's definitely, it wouldn't have shocked me if I heard, some chitter, some chit chat about him talking about, the per, capita argument for Jersey to PA, but in favor of Jersey, that this guy completely turned around so much. So if I hear about, rumors like that, I wouldn't think twice about it.
Yeah, I think there's a rumor actually going around that Jeff actually has 1 season of eligibility left collegiately. It's hard to keep track of those eligibility rules in college these days, but I think Rutgers it could be a good fit for him to walk onto that program.
I agree, man. Goodell obviously has shown that he can take some average talent. Jeff obviously, needs some work to meet that criteria, and then, skyrocket that. So I think it would be a fun little project for Goody and the boys. And I don't know, man. Like you said, Jeff has already got the gear. He's got the one T-shirt, and he can just wear that every single day. So all he needs is a singlet. Good friend of mine, Mikey Simmons, director of ops, actually at Rutgers, Middletown graduate. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to talk to him and see if we could at least get Jeff, some exposure there, or a tryout, or something, or at least to compete at the next year's Zingos, which I believe Jeff was very impressed with Ray O'Donnell's performance at the Zingos. Went there straight off the couch, and apparently he was in the semis or something like that. So that's also very impressive. I don't think Jeff can compete with that, but it'll be a good story.
I think Jeff actually, maybe I'm wrong. Did Jeff compete at the Zingos? Not as an official member of the tournament a few years ago, but I did see a video of Jeff wearing like jeans and socks, and he looked, semi uncoordinated, as if maybe he had never wrestled before, but it was in fact Jeff. And I think he got cradled and pinned by Aaron Morkin in the little exhibition match that they had, while wearing their street clothes. But was that at the Zingos tournament or somewhere nearby?
No, you're 100% right, I believe. Unless the Zingos changed location. I believe it's, it all went down in the same location. And Jeff really got his first taste of the Zingos there. Sadly, it was by being cradled by Morgan. Like you said, kind of Jeff bounced around a little bit like a J.O. bounce, kind of thinking he's cute, and just kind of doing a dart low single. And I was like, that was actually a pretty nice, low single for a guy who looks like he can't even tie his shoes and trips over his own feet. And sure enough, dude, Morgan just like a fly on poop, just boom, slaps a tight cradle on, like he wasn't even fazed by Jeff's freaking lackluster shot on him. And sure enough, Jeff's feet are flailing in the air in his stupid jeans at the Zingo. The same location, but I don't know what the arena's called, so we're just going to call it the Zingo Arena or the Zingo Sports Complex. But yeah, Jeff, I think he wants, vengeance. He owes it to himself, I think, to at least compete at the Zingos, because that's his last memory actually competing.
Yeah, I think he fought off his back semi-admirably for a few seconds there, wiggled a good bit, but ultimately I think Morgan did secure the fall, at least, people's decision fall. So I think going back to the Zingos annually is just his shot at redemption. Maybe there will be some photographer there in his jeans and a cardigan sweater that he can, challenge to a best 2 out of 3 and get his redemption. So you can kind of understand why the urge is there to keep returning to the tournament. Just again, a little questionable coming back decked out in Rutgers gear to do a PA Power Live podcast. But hey, we won't question it.
Pretty bold of him. Not only to Pennsylvania, but also pretty bold for him to Rutgers. That this is a guy that's last memory again at the Zingos was him getting sent home by Morgan, and then he's gonna have the audacity to just wear their gear like he represents them. So I don't know if that's an image that they want either, but we'll have to ask.
That's questionable at best. So speaking of Jeff, before we get in, we're gonna talk a little bit about the PA State's experience that TC had. I was actually out at Northwestern for the Big Ten tournament, so I missed PA State's, but we'll dive into that a little bit. We'll take a look at these NCAA brackets that just came out last night, talk a little bit about some PA guys and how they're looking in the bracket. But before we get there, we got to talk about one more thing about Jeff. Jeff, of all the hats that he wears, I believe this one may be he might be most prideful about this one. You always hear him. He even uses the acronym to represent this, but you know where I'm going with this. He is on the committee, chair, board, whatever you want to call it, for let's just call it Dapper Dan, but the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic, now known as the PWC. But it's been Dapper Dan our whole life for the most part, at least until somewhat recently. But anyway, he takes a lot of pride in being one of the guys that helps choose the Pennsylvania team, which guys will go out and represent the Keystone State. And like I said, he takes a lot of pride in it, and he puts a lot of thought and research into hand selecting those PA representatives that will go out and compete each year against the best, at least in theory, best opponents from around the country. But he's catching a little bit of flack this week, TC. I don't know if you saw it, but some people out there are not happy with old Jeff Upson and some of the choices he made on that PA lineup.
Yeah, boy, that's an understatement. I was sitting there working diligently at work, making ChatGPT pictures of a close friend of mine, and when it arose to me that Jeff Upson posted a picture on Instagram, the PA Power, and I see 27 comments, and I mean, no offense, but the PA Power, it could use a little bit of media expertise or a little bit of advertising expertise if Jeff were willing to hire somebody for that. I do recommend that. Anyway, 27 comments or something, that's got to be a record, so there's got to be a reason. So I click it, and Jeff is just getting absolutely highlight reeled here, or at least not Jeff, but when it's Jeff who's the target of the hate and the criticism. Oh, dude, it just brings, a smile to my face to see that. And yeah, they weren't happy with him. They really weren't. They really, I mean, let's just say that man might not be welcomed in Altoona anymore. And if he does, he might be getting a few swirlies and fed a few urinal cakes here and there.
Jeff, not good. Just may or may not have snubbed a really good wrestler. That's kind of what it seems to boil down to. And one thing that they've done at the PWC a couple times now that I've seen it is there will be certain weight classes where they'll have two matches, and I guess he didn't have it in his heart to get that second match at another weight class, something to that effect. But, all we can hope is better. But we expect better out of Jeff, just as we talked about in the beginning with the editing skills on these podcasts. We just hope he does better next year. That's all we can really say on that.
Right. No, absolutely. But speaking of the Dapper Dan, it is an absolutely pretty stacked lineup. I think it's one of the better ones that I've seen Team PA have. And if you've got that position where you have two, top 10 guys in the country that you have to choose from at that weight, definitely a good problem for PA, especially after kind of a few years. I don't know, not to say anybody is below, the standard of the PA, but, here and there, you get a senior who, maybe took fifth at states or something from PA, which still could compete, obviously, and does. But to have that problem, good problem to have, but, maybe not the best planning. Again, maybe just a lack of effort, Jeff. I'm sure he could have just sent a little email out and somebody in the top 10 in the country would have been happy to wrestle, the hammer that was left out. But, hey, if Jeff thought it was best for that not to happen, or maybe it wasn't even Jeff's decision, I don't know. Jeff did say there was a head-to-head that was involved in this criteria, kind of like the Matrix for NCAA. Jeff did say there was a head-to-head that the Matrix relied heavily on. So we'll blame the Matrix for this one and say that Maddox Shaw, who's also hammer, got the upper edge because of the H to H.
Yeah, well, you know what I got to say? I was fully ready to move on from there and let Jeff crawl back into his shell for the rest of this episode. But, dude, I just got thinking, the subject of our discussion right now is a Rutgers commit. What was Jeff thinking? He's a Zingos guy, comes back decked out in Rutgers gear, and that's how he repays the Scarlet Knights. I'm beside myself. That. Yeah, just dawned on me.
It makes you sick a little bit to think about. It really does. It really puts a damper on the whole mood, It really is something that we can't even really discuss further.
We're about to just sign off right now. That's it. That might be it for tonight.
I mean, I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not surprised. That's not the way to go about it, though. As a professional, he can't be doing that.
Yep. Well, speaking of Jeff and the PA Power team, so you actually, we talked about week one. We talked about you were supposed to be going to Altoona to help out at the regional or whatever it was, that postseason event there. Maybe it was, what was it, teams? I don't even remember what it was. Team States.
Yeah, Team States. Team States in Toontown. Yeah,
Team States. You were supposed to be there. Had some car trouble or some excuse, whatever it was.
No, sickness. But that was legit because I'm still actually recovering from that. Still.
Yeah. Okay.
Potentially.
Well, regardless, you actually did make it to the PIAA state tournament at the Giant Center. Last weekend. Was it last weekend? That feels like it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your experience and just did anything really jump out to you? How was Jeff? Did he were his efforts a little bit more concentrated than they were in editing our podcast last week? Talk a little bit about that.
I would say Jeff was pretty impressive. I think, when you're a wrestler or you're a coach, I think the big thing is, relating to the state tournament is we peak in March. You want to peak for March. You want your best performance in March when it matters. And I honestly can say that for Jeff. So the man may have been slacking off a little bit. I've heard, definitely not in October and November at those PA Power events. He was really kind of getting the kinks out, of his game. But the man really did peak this, in March when it mattered, when the lights were the brightest. He was also the brightest because pretty composed, and he wasn't, commander in chief, kind of like he usually does. He was asking me, what do you want to do? And, he gave me the role of doing the interviews, which is something that, I personally, not my strong suit, kind of takes a little bit of a guy like him to, run up, like I said previously, and, hey, man, can you get an interview with me, dude? How does it feel to be, at the state tournament? It takes a guy like that to do that, especially after a kid, just got done wrestling you'd assume a pretty hard match, and now here I am with my camera in there asking him little just we're politicking, but he did say which is basically the greatest compliment you can get is that he's really proud of me, like kind of like a mentor. He's really proud of me, just of how far I've come. But he did then it was a backhanded compliment because then he said that, the standard wasn't high to begin with. So couldn't be worse. So he did kind of cancel out the compliment. Yeah. But at the end of the day, aside from all that, the event was actually pretty sweet. Obviously, AA, AAA, and girls all at one time. I was a little bit weary about that, the idea that just kind of how they were going to set it up, and they didn't have a parade of champions, which is still kind of like my one complaint, I thought. But then they actually did do it. It was just like after they did it weird, but I kind of liked it. It was going to be bad. They kind of just had everybody come out at first, and people just clap for everybody. And I was like, this is horrific. This is literally like PJWs. Like, this is like, congrats, bro. You just made it to the state finals, but we're just going to clap for you and then, just go pounce. But, then they actually introduced the people and made it pretty sweet. They did. They kind of did it in a way where they had they introduced the AAA, the AA, and the girls, and it was actually pretty sweet. So
that's good to hear.
The event, yeah, it actually was. And I think like we were talking about the announcer and stuff like that, seemed like he had a little bit more energy. I don't know. We may have manifested it because surely they weren't listening to this, but seemed like they were kind of just saying, return, two-time state champ. I think they hit him with that this year. I remember, kind of. And the one thing I will say is that how they divided the mats with the girls, the double, and the AAA, it was actually really freaking sweet because everybody who, is obviously watching the AAA, they all moved to that section right by the AAA. So it felt like just a packed house kind of in each section because, I don't know, I guess because they split that. They were all behind us. And it felt like I was at I don't even know, like at a college duel, like Edinburgh, how they have those big bleachers that go up or whatever. It felt honestly like that. So it was probably sweet to wrestle at the state tournament and almost feel like you're in a dual meet, as opposed to kind of feeling like you're just like seeing a bunch of just random heads scattered through.
And empty seats.
Overall, yeah, a lot of empty seats, but you didn't really see empty seats just because they condensed it. So it was almost like a student section right behind.
No, yeah, so I meant back at the way you used to do it, where it was separated. There was probably more empty seats, but obviously when you combine all three classes, that's a lot more people jammed in there at once. That's good.
Smart idea. Good business plan.
I think the biggest match everybody's talking about is the Jax Forrest Aaron Seidel match. But was there any other matches that really jumped out at you as a memorable one, or any big upsets or surprise champs that you really were taken away by?
I think, like the 107, because we can't call it 106, it's 107 now. I gotta add, it's by sevens now, but double A 107, Latier or Latier, I don't know, I keep botching his name, but McDevitt boy, who I was asking Upson about, like just looking at the bracket, I'm like, this kid's pretty good. We've watched him wrestle, like, and Jeff was like, yeah, he is solid. I don't know. He's got a tough path with Bassett and all that. And dude, that kid wrestled his freaking butt off. And that was like the biggest surprise to me, that he kind of handled Bassett, was turning him and stuff like that. And then wrestled a kid that he wrestled in the regional finals last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever, the week before that, and beat him in the finals. And that kid beat Karen Bauer, who I did not see losing like at all. Like I thought was pretty much like this kid might not lose in his high school career, because he looked like an absolute monster all year. So yeah, that I would say Latier for McDevitt was definitely surprising for me. I would say like Kai for Whitehall, he was absolutely sick, and he was exciting. Every match of his was like a barn burner and just kept scoring points. Mm-hmm. I would say for AAA, that had to be like the biggest. I don't think many people had him winning that tournament, especially in like the style where he won it. Like the kid was winning like 14-11 and crap in the semis, and overall, that kid was an absolute hammer. Trying to think any other than that.
Well, how about our former PA Power correspondent of the Recess podcast, Deputy? What a! I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen. I'm sure you could pull it out, but just off the top of my head, that bracket had like 5 kids ranked in the top 10 in the country or something insane,
Stacked.
And he had the toughest road of anybody because he got Dieter in the quarters. So, oh my goodness, for him to come out on top of that and just keep churning out W's after W after W in that bracket, that's an insanely impressive feat.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. That is the truth, because I completely forgot about him. He had, like, for his standard, such a lackluster year. There probably is a reason for that, but, I remember just asking Jeff, like, dude, what's up with this kid? I've seen this kid wrestle, and he's a freak. Like, what? Like, taking some losses to, like, Guaynot or however you say it, who's obviously really good, but somebody who Deputy I wouldn't see losing to. And getting pinned by the...
Are you talking about from Bald Eagle area?
Yeah, I don't know how to read it, so that... Yeah, same thing. Tomato. But... And the Berks Catholic kid, him getting pinned, even if he got caught and pinned, like I still don't see him getting caught and pinned. Like he's so good that he doesn't even do that. So to see him taking all those losses, even to Detter, who I'm pretty sure he's beaten multiple times before, maybe not, I don't know. I'm pretty sure I've watched it though. It was surprising to see him, and then again though, peaked in March like Upson, and wrestle, the best that he did all year when it mattered. And even, with that call about, against Detter, I mean, it was the right call. And, especially in ride out, something or whatever it was, not ultimate tiebreaker, but one of the ride outs, can't do that. So, yeah, man. Yeah. He wrestled like a beast. That I would say AA was, like, for me, more exciting to watch than AAA. Not to say that the AAA, didn't have its great matches, but I feel like the great guys in AAA kind of had a pretty dominant final, as opposed to like AA. Like their best guys were like in the same bracket, as you said, with Forrest and Seidel, who put on an absolute freaking. And Seidel didn't win that match, but I feel like he made a crap ton of adjustments since that second match, and the scrambling of both of them is ridiculous. That was just fun to watch. Even if they scored 0 points that match and just it was practice, that was freaking a true show for the fans.
Yeah, it's like the art of wrestling, something that's really entertaining to watch, no matter who wins or what the score is. Well, that's awesome. I was at the Big Ten tournament out in Northwestern. Took a nice 10-hour drive there and back. It was a long weekend. It was weird to not be at, I was at Old Dominion for 7 years, so I missed my fair share of PA state tournaments, but after being back at it for several years now of moving back home to PA, it was it was definitely a little, I felt like I was missing out a little bit, FOMO or whatever you want to call it, at the PA States. But no, it was actually really cool to be at the Big Ten tournament. Also, I think that was only my third time at Big Tens. Obviously, Penn State had a really good performance. Some PA boys doing really well out there. But overall, yeah, it was just good to get a little, kind of like a warm up before the NCAA tournament here in Philadelphia, starting a week from today, actually. So it's kind of good to get a little taste of the action there, see those guys at Big Tens. And I'll tell you what, it's like, I just felt, as I was sitting there watching, and I was like feeling lucky that I wrestled in the MAC conference. And when I say that, when people hear the MAC conference today, no disrespect to it, but it's a little different than it was when I was there. We had Northern Iowa, we had Missouri, we had, Ohio was like a top 15 team. We had Eastern Michigan was actually pretty good. We had Central Michigan was really good.
Central Michigan was good.
Yeah, I mean, the MAC back then, there wasn't a bad team. Like even Northern Illinois was pretty good.
Kent State was stacked.
Yeah. I mean, we were pretty good. So again, it's a little different than when you say the MAC today, where they get almost like one guy at every weight. My senior year, we had 6 or 7 qualify out of a 9-man bracket. So it was kind of loaded. But anyway, again, I'm feeling lucky that I wrestled in the MAC even the way it was back then, because those guys who have to go through the Big Ten, man, that is a gauntlet. They go through that whole January, February dual season of Big Ten, and then you got to wrestle all those guys all over again at the Big Ten tournament, and then turn around and go to NCAAs like 10 days later. That's just brutal, and not even from just a physical and mental standpoint, right? It's like some of those guys got dinged up or hurt, and it's like, man, you have to really try to find a way to heal your body in 9 or 10 days from just a grind and a beatdown of the Big Ten schedule. So more power to all those guys who do that, because I don't know how they do it. They're obviously way tougher than I was, and way better at wrestling too. So, but yeah, let's anything you want to say about Big Tens before we move into these NCAA brackets a little bit?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I know there's a lot of kind of backlash about why the Big Ten, gets like their mini pool, how they have like 7 tournaments into one weight, and how those guys even qualify, who take like whatever
11th place.
9th place.
Yeah.
But yeah, 11th place. But then you go and see them wrestle, and they win like 2 or 3 matches at nationals, or more. So I mean, like, hey, that guy might be 7-11, whatever, but there is a reason for it, and it makes sense. So I mean, like you said, that conference is ridiculous, and I mean, like Jay Jaggers, I don't think he ever won Big Tens, right? And he was a 2-time national champ. So I think that says a lot about the Big Tens. But
yeah,
I think
agreed.
PA showed out at the Big Tens. I think they did pretty solid job. We had some PA on PA crime, which you never like to see, but
no. There's nothing worse. I just got to say, there's nothing worse than seeing PA on PA crime in the blood round of the NCAA tournament. That really, that's like a nails on a chalkboard for me. I just hate, because obviously we're competitive. We always want to see at the end of the NCAA tournament that chart pop up that has PA has the most All-American count, which pretty much happens every year. At the worst, we sometimes tie with like Ohio, but usually we win that crown. But some of the years, I remember.
I mean, it's a bad year for you. It's a compliment when you're saying, why do we only have 41 people? So it's
and that's something I was going to talk about here in a second too. But even backtracking a second, I remember the one year, I don't remember what year it was off the top of my head. I want to say it was like 2016 maybe, probably right after I graduated, a year or two after I graduated. There was like 4 blood round matches that night. That was PA against PA. It was like, I specifically remember at 49, it was Mike DePalma from Kent State against Matt Samato from Drexel. That was one example. Whatever year that was, if you go back and look that up, there was like 3 or 4.
2016, I think.
I think so. Yeah, there's like 3 or 4 blood round matches where it was. One of them I think was Lehigh Kid from Biglerville.
Lake Gardner.
I think Lake had a PA kid maybe, or Scotty Parker. One of them did. It might have been Mickey Philippi, I think, had somebody from PA.
Was Voorhees one of them too?
Something like that. Yeah, it was it was like there was like 4, maybe even more. I couldn't believe it. I was just going through the brackets.
Tyler Smith, 100% Tyler Smith wrestled somebody from PA. I remember that.
Yeah, that might be it. Okay, well, we'll have to go back.
Stephen Zackrell or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. It was Zackrell, I think. Zackrell Smith. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll have to go back and look at it. Look at it. But regardless, it was. I hate when you see that because it's like obviously you want the PA boys to get on the podium, but it's like they have to duke it out with each other to get there. That's tough. And speaking of that, oh my goodness, we're about to get into these NCAA brackets. How about Luke and Max Stout, brothers, about to wrestle each other potentially in the second round of the NCAA tournament? Could you imagine being their parents? I mean, what? And one of them's a senior, I think. I think Luke is a senior at Princeton. So again, with all this eligibility stuff, he might have another year. I'm not sure, but imagine being a senior and having to lose. Potentially, he might win. I don't know. He might not even get there. But imagine the possibility of losing to your little brother to get knocked out of the championship bracket. That's just wild stuff.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, it's like that I don't know. I don't know how you look at those brackets and are like, yeah, let's just stack these two like right next to each other and like just look at it and nobody mentioned it either. Like nobody even saw that. But I don't know. I can't remember like people brothers wrestling unless it was like the PJWs or something, or like that D3 match that happened. But even that
finals
super rare and not at the obviously the D1 tournament. It's just crazy. That's so weird. And that was in the final. So again, like you said, not boom right away.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is with it now, I think they just seed the entire bracket, and I think you just fall wherever your seed is. So it's like a preset, placement. So if you're the 29 seed, you know exactly where you're going in the bracket. So I think it's just the way the bracket fell. It almost feels like it was destined to happen. Just I was looking at it all year as we did our college rankings for Win, and I was just looking at it like these guys are, they're not in the same conference. They don't go to, I don't think, any of the really same events, but I just feel like at NCAAs, there's a really good chance that they're going to bump into each other. Like all year, they were like 13, 15 or 12, 14 in the rankings. I'm like, this could be a blood round match. I guess maybe they did them a favor by not having them wrestle in the blood round. Could you imagine if that happened? But yeah, like I said, I think it's Luke Stout from Princeton has O'Malley from Drexel in the first round, which is, I'd say that's borderline toss-up. O'Malley's like a seventh-year senior. He's obviously up a couple weights from where he had most of his career, but he's been to the NCAA tournament like 4 times. So that's a toss-up. I mean, there is a legitimate possibility, I would say, that this match doesn't end up happening because I think O'Malley could win that. But, if Luke Stout is able to beat him, then I feel like all eyes are going to be on those two just for the sheer dumb luck of that happening. That's just something insane. But
so weird.
the other topic you were about to bring up here before we dive into the bracket was the NCAA qualifier count. So, like I said, taking a step back from the All-American count, the PA qualified 41 guys, I believe, was the final total. Maybe 42. I can't remember.
We were Feldman floated. Flo canceled Feldman out. He apparently doesn't exist, but with his existence, if you consider him, it's 41.
A native of Quarryville, PA, where Solanco is, I believe. So 41. I think the next highest state was California with 27, 28, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. 27 maybe.
Yeah, which is, we were going back and forth with Jeff a little bit, or with you, maybe it was, but obviously PA still the most qualifiers, but not quite as big of a gap as we've seen in past years. I know there's been a couple years where PA's been well into the 60s, and the second place team is like, high 20s or low 30s. So that, I don't know if it's just this year or what, but that gap is slowly shortening. Obviously, Pennsylvania still has the most, but there's some other states that are sending a lot of guys to the NCAA tournament. I will say that.
Yeah, fair point. I mean, if you said there's been 60 before, I don't know what it is, but hey, if, like I said, it's a compliment if it's, whatever, you have 14 more people, whatever, than the next state, and that's a down year for, Pennsylvania. So yeah, I would say it's still good, but we'll see. I think as long as that, they still have the most All-Americans, that's the big thing for me.
Yeah.
As long as they have the most All-Americans, that's cool. And like for the per capita bull crap, those goofballs, You know, PA always has the most All-Americans, and I feel like that says the most. You know, even national champs, that doesn't often say the most. Honestly, Wisconsin could have the most national champs this year, potentially, maybe not, but
Yeah.
just a random state like that. So I feel like you can't even go by the most national champs. You really got to go by the All-Americans.
Yeah, I saw just random fact. I saw Ben Askren put out a tweet that he has 5 kids from not just from the state of Wisconsin, but from his club alone in the 165-pound bracket. I couldn't.
But that is his state. Doesn't
Yeah, true.
State go to his club?
I think a good portion, but or at least a good portion of the area that's good at wrestling in the state. But I was trying to go through it in the top of my head. I couldn't even think of 5 guys from Wisconsin in that bracket, besides a couple of the obvious ones. But that's still a pretty cool stat. I'm sure he said something to the effect of like, I don't think this has ever happened. There's probably been some bracket you could go back to where 5 kids from Young Guns were in the same bracket. I would have to think between kids who went to Penn State or Pitt. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Easily.
Young Guns, obviously a stacked club, but yeah, either way, I thought that was an impressive stat.
In that year. 20, yeah. I could probably look at it right now as we're talking, as we're going through.
Well, as you pull that up, let's dive into the NCAA bracket. So we'll start 125 and just go up each weight class and just talk about, maybe a PA guy or two that jumps out as having a good matchup or a bad matchup or a good road to the podium. So let's go there. At 125, there's actually not a ton of PA kids in this bracket. Sheldon Seymour from Lehigh. He's out of, I believe, Troy High School up in northern Pennsylvania. He's an 8 seed, which was a pretty good seed for him. He's been ranked, I think, somewhere in like the 10 to 15 range most of the year from what I've seen, but pretty good seed for him. Not a great road. If he wins his first match against Charlie Farmer from Army, he'll get Caleb Smith from Nebraska, who, in my opinion, is a little bit low, is seated a little low at 9. He's probably more like a 4-5, but returning All-American. Has had 2 1-point matches with Lillidahl this year. But regardless, whoever wins that match is getting Lillidahl in the quarters, presumably. So, kind of a tough matchup there. But, either one of those guys, Seymour, potentially could make some noise on the backside, too, and try to get on that podium. It'll be tough. 125 is one of those weights where, and it kind of commonly happens at 125, it seems. But I think these seeds will not stick very well. I think you'll have guys on the podium that are seated in like the 20s. That tends to happen a lot, or the 16 seed will make it on or something like that. Do you have anything you want to talk about here at 125 before we move on? I don't know if there's even one other Pennsylvania kid in this bracket.
I know, I'm trying to look through. I don't see anybody other than the ones you mentioned, but
we could roll up to 133.
Honestly, roll up to 133. I don't see anything too interesting at 125 for Pennsylvania or in general. I really have no 125 back-to-back years for me where I literally just let it happen. I have zero confidence in anything. Let it happen.
Yeah. Well, 33, kind of similar. It's a little more, I feel like, not guaranteed, but I think the top 1 or 2, like a Bird Ayala, is most likely going to be the finals. Who wins that, it remains to be seen. But again, not a weight with not a lot of PA kids. I think only 2 from what I counted at a quick glance. Slacking. Jacob Van D, 17 seed. Yes, and Ryan Miller, and then also Kurt Phipps from Bucknell. So they're actually all right near each other in the bracket in the same top quadrant there, top pod, whatever you want to call it.
Well, bottom too. McGonigal and Bergen wrestling each other back. They're wrestling each other right off the rip, aren't they? From PA.
Who's that?
Ethan.
Ethan Bergen from Hempfield. Yep.
And McGonigal.
Is Connor McGonigal from PA? I don't know that. I don't know that he was.
He's not, honestly. I thought I'm probably wrong then. See, I thought that kid was from PA and wrestled at one of those Westchester Rustin or some bull crap.
I don't know. You can look that up while I'm scrolling through. I forgot about Bergink. I actually forgot he was in the bracket, but Bergink, surprise state champ back in the day from Hempfield.
He's not from PA. I'm a liar.
He's from New Hampshire, Timberlane. Right?
Yeah. I'm a liar.
He's from Timberlane.
Yeah, we don't care.
All right. Okay. So Bergink with a pretty tough matchup there in McGonigal. Let's see, who else do we say? Kurt Phipps has a pretty tough matchup in Braden Davis, but Phipps is pretty scrappy. He could be a decent match.
Yeah. And he's good on
Van
top.
D, Ryan Miller is
problems.
Yeah, and Ryan Miller Van D is an interesting matchup, but winner gets probably Lucas Bird the next round, so that's a pretty tough draw as well. I'd say any one of those guys we just named would have to have a really good tournament to get on the podium. Probably not a great shot, but definitely some chances to win some matches there. Yeah. All right, moving up to 141. This was a weight where, you could say the seating was just, wow, like a little wild, but at the same time, you don't really, I guess, know for sure what the criteria that they're using to seed is, because, it almost feels like they're taking out guys' previous accomplishments out of the equation. So somebody like Alirez, a former national champ, took the year off last year, and then this year 16-1, doesn't have a whole lot of like super quality wins, and the one loss he had was to the guy who seeded like 7th, or was it 7th? Yeah, Tegan Jameson. So it's like, boom, automatically he gets an 8 seed. In your mind, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. And I think that's probably been the biggest head scratcher for people looking at these seeds. But like I said, if that is the criteria, if you're really not considering anything from the years past and you're just looking at this year's body of work, like I guess you could see where there's an argument there. I don't know, but let's look for the Pennsylvania boys. Wyatt Henson, 16 seed. He, kind of similar to last year, has been just ripping people up with a lot of tech falls for the most part. But again, like that max schedule is not the toughest, not the max schedule that it was even back in the 2010 to 15 era. But Henson is
for Wyatt Henson to have a Kyle Shoup-esque year where
I was just getting ready to say that he's good on top with those tilts, and you never know at the NCAA tournament you might run into a Midwest boy who's not superb on bottom, and that's all it takes.
That's all. A few Midwest boys, literally the Kyle Shoup method. Let somebody take you down. Well, not let, but get taken down, get a reversal, and then just go
to work on top.
See ya. Yeah, see ya.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting for it. Maybe this is the year. Maybe we'll see.
Moving down the bracket, 21 seed Dylan Chappell, Bucknell, PA boy. He's got Sam Latona from Virginia Tech, seeded 12th, first round. Not a terrible matchup. Latona's got to be in his 5th or 6th year now, and he's also up at his highest weight class. He started his career as a 25-pounder. So, you never know. Obviously, he's probably not the favorite in that match, but not a terrible draw. You got Briar Priest from Pitt, who I would say that is a pretty tough draw. He's got returning national champ Jesse Mendez from Ohio State in the first round. Not a great matchup there.
I'm honestly surprised Priest even made it. I don't even know I don't think he was even the starter, and that's why I think the record is not that 12-9.
Yeah,
could have been, but I swear one of the Santa and Elo kids or whatever I thought they might have been started at the beginning of the year. So the fact that he's here, good for him. But he definitely will have his hands full his first match.
Yeah, and it sounds corny to say, but it is actually kind of true. Like once you're there, anything can happen. I think getting there is the tough part. It's all tough, but getting there is obviously a huge step. Is what I'm saying. That how many times do you see somebody random at NCAAs either make the blood round or win 2 matches that you wouldn't have expected, or get on the podium, and it's like how did they even get there? So you never know. Just got to keep an open mind there. Guys will go on a rampage through the backside somehow, and it happens all the time. Let's move up to 149. Let's see here. We got, had a quick scan. Your boy, Paniro Johnson, Erie Cathedral Prep, Iowa State Cyclone, seeded 4th. P Money, that's your guy.
I think
he's got a pretty decent draw.
My favorite draw of the whole tournament for a PA guy. That's not like expected to, or not expected, but that hasn't maybe been talked about.
He hasn't been on the All-American podium yet. So that's one thing.
Exactly. And it's not like a Storaci or something that you obviously like kind of just ironically, Erie Cathedral Prep, but not like a him where you just already know, like, the 1 seed or something. Paniro, I don't think many people probably thought he would have gotten the 4 seed. Just because of honestly, nobody really talks about Paniro, which is good. I kind of like that. And he got that 4 seed, and he's wrestled like 165, 57 a few times.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
and
he's wrestled all over the place.
Good. Yeah, but for a 4 seed, I think like that's the perfect, stylistically for him. Like, I like if and I expect him to, knock on some wood. He gets to that semifinal. I like his matchup with Henson way more than I would like his match, like let's say with Ridge Lovett or somebody who's like just a lanky freak, like super unorthodox, amazing
killer on top.
Like,
yeah.
Exactly. Pinheiro, nobody wants to wrestle. That's like got to be the worst matchup, like for anybody. Like that sounds like miserable. The dude's got Popeye arms, and he's like explosive as anything. He's a freak, but for him, like that might be my favorite, PA draw that we got. That might have been not expected.
Were Pinheiro and Carter teammates at Erie Prep, or is Carter too much older than him? They've got to be 2-3 years apart.
I think they're 2 years apart, but Pinheiro's not that much younger. I think they're either a grade or 2 grades because Pinheiro took like a gray shirt or whatever you call it. So like I think Pinheiro, even though he might be what is he, like a redshirt sophomore on paper or something?
Yeah.
He's at least a year older than that. He's at least 1 year older than that because he was at Iowa State. His would have been, I think he graduated and then took like a year off. I have no idea. I'm not positive, but I think he's only 1 or 2 years younger than Starace, probably 2.
Okay. And Pinheiro, I want to say his seed at NCAA is not that it guaranteed he'll finish top 4, but let's say he does place 4th. I think he will have placed higher at NCAAs than he placed at PA States. Is that right? I can't remember his highest PA State finish, but I think it was like 5th, wasn't it? He was always in a stacked bracket with like Jared Kessler and
what's it called?
Dylan Evans, maybe. It was
the kid from Becca who just is a freak. Ryan, what's his name?
Anderson.
Yeah, I think he was at his weight a few like in the beginning.
He was always in a stacked weight.
He took third. He took third twice.
He did take third twice? Okay, maybe.
Yeah,
okay,
respectable.
Right.
4-time placer too. Very respectable.
Wow.
Very respectable.
Yeah, I knew he was a stud. I just knew he was always stuck in a weight that was stacked, but I couldn't remember exactly what he placed.
This man's wrestling 172 in high school. What's wrong with this guy? People are just bumping him up like 7 weight classes. Freaking 172.
He's a team player.
Finished here. He is, dude. Holy crap. Shout out Pinheiro Johnson, man. Look forward to seeing you next year at 157, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, any lineup hole that ISU needs, he'll be your guy. Finishing off 49 here, Gabe Willichel from Latrobe. He's a 30 seed for Wyoming. He's got Shane Van Ness in the first round. That's a tough draw, obviously. Caden Cassidy from George Mason. He's a 27 seed. He's got Lachlan McNeil from UNC, who's a 6. That's another tough draw. And that's about it for the 49 weight. Let's move up 57. Tyler Kasak's your number 1 seed. He only PA guy in his little
tough, right?
What's that?
No, Dylan Evans, right? 2 below. Or
I was just gonna
whatever.
say Dylan Evans is the only other PA guy I'm seeing here in the top part of the bracket who got an at-large bid and is the 24 seed for Pitt. He's got Tommy Askey from Minnesota, who has looked really good this year as a 9. He's a 9 seed. He's ranked like 5th, so that's almost a low seed for Askey. Let's see who else down here. 57 for PA, Jude Swisher from Penn. He's a 14, and he gets Iowa transfer Kobe Siebrecht, who's at South Dakota State now, who's a 19.
He's been hot as of late.
He's been hot. I was going to say that's a toss-up match. That could go either way. Swisher's had obviously a really good year for a freshman, but Siebrecht is I think he's a senior. He's been around for a while. He's wrestled that Big Ten schedule, so that could be a good match in the first round to keep an eye on. I think that's it for
Ed
PA
Scott
kids
right
at
below
57. Right? Oh, Ed Scott. Good call. I forgot Ed Scott is still here. 22 seed. He's got Matty Bianchi from Little Rock, who's an 11, but honestly, Ed Scott is probably predicted to win that match. I think he's ranked higher than him in most polls. So, again, that's a toss-up, but some of these seeds are like, you see here's a perfect example, 11 against 22. The average fan looking at this would be like, oh, Bianchi's definitely supposed to win that match, but if you go look at half the polls, like Intermat or Flow or whatever, like Ed Scott might be ranked ahead of him, and in all of them. I'm not sure, but it's pretty close. So I think the seeds are sometimes a little misleading, and I'm not sure how they arrive at those seeds.
Yeah, I don't know what matrix they're talking about, but whatever the matrix is doing, whatever. But truthfully, I feel like if Ed Scott were to kind of do what Ed Scott can do and just whip things off, if he's really saving it, kind of like we were talking about for a tournament, I like his draw like through this whole way through for him to do that, like up until the semis or something like that. Like, I mean, Downey is good, but like Ed Scott's a freak and is good as a PA guy. He's not going to be getting tilted by him and crap. Like Antrell Taylor, like all that. I feel like that's a winnable match, like the whole thing. So not saying it, but just if Ed Scott were to say, screw it, I kind of
going out with a bang
for the year, but
yeah,
it's time to actually wrestle. He could do it, and I like his match. I like the potential for it.
Yeah, he's former fifth or sixth placer. He's been there before, so yeah. All right, 165, 32 seed Jared Kessler, who we just mentioned a minute ago. I didn't realize he's 10-11. I thought he was having a better year than that. He's beat some good guys. He's the 32 seed. He'll get Messenbrink if he wins his pigtail. Looking on down the line, we got Mac Church from Virginia Tech, who graduated high school at 132 the weight class was, and now he's a 165 pounder. He is a 28 seed, and he gets number 5 seed Julian Ramirez out of Cornell, who Ramirez hasn't really wrestled very good competition this year, but he is a 3-time returning blood round finisher, so he is obviously one of the top guys at the weight.
He's got a win over David Carr in his career as well.
Yeah, exactly. He can beat the best of them.
He's a
looking on down. That's it, I think, right? I don't think there's any other PA guys in this weight. I seem to miss one at every weight, but I don't think I see any more here. Do you?
No, I don't see him. No, that's all. That's a pretty.
That's the weight that we said Askren was talking about. There's a lot of Wisconsin boys in that bracket.
Yeah, they took it all up. I guess that's makes sense. So
yeah,
they can have
174. I just got to say, 33 seed Jack McGill from Columbia. Obviously, he's got to win his first one, and then he gets O'Toole, which is unfortunate. But that guy has been having the second half of the year from I don't know where to say here on this podcast, but he has been. I think he majored in Contreras from Penn. He beat somebody else really good. He's a guy that I feel like the last time I heard of him he was in the state finals for Springford, right? And that was like 5 years ago in high school. And then all of a sudden he just kind of popped up out of nowhere for Columbia this year. And he's been winning a lot of really good matches here lately. So I'm not sure what changed. The switch went on for him, but, like I said, he's got O'Toole in the prelim, but he could make a run through the consies potentially. It's kind of an upset 33 seed guy.
Well, if I remember correctly, at this weight for the exact same team, the Cinderella story of the tournament was Wolnock or whatever. Was he not? He was Columbia, right?
Yeah, he was like a 6 seed though. Was the only difference, but still, I mean, he was in the semis, which is surprising. But he did have a heck of a year last year.
Before that, the 6th seed, he probably shouldn't have been either. But because he did the exact same thing. I think he was bombing people on their head. He bombed in Contreras kid and but other than that, I feel like he had like a lot of losses maybe going to that, and
maybe
should not probably have been that if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so let's keep going on down here. Lenny Pinto out of Stroudsburg is your 8 seed. He's got Dalton Harkins from Army, who I think wrestled at Malvern Prep. I don't know that he's a PA kid, but am I right? I think he wrestled at Malvern.
Yeah.
He's probably from New York or something. But who else? Yeah. PA. We got Garrett Thompson. Got to be one of my favorite guys in the tournament, just by virtue of being a 0-time PA state qualifier who's a 4 seed. That guy is just having an awesome career season, whatever. He's a junior now for Ohio U, but that guy, it's not very often that you will see a guy who didn't qualify for PA states. I feel like that was more of a common thing back in like the Troy Sunderland Penn State era. You had guys like Pat Cummins in the NCAA finals who he might have qualified for states, but I don't think he was like a state high placer or champ or anything. But you'd have guys like Doc Vecchio, who's like a 1-time state placer maybe, who would like be an All-American. Like that was a little more common back then, but you don't see it as much these days. But good for Thompson. And then let's see who else we got here. Obviously, you got Levi Haynes as your 2 seed. He's got Avery Bassett from Lock Haven, so that's some all PA crime right there in the first round. And honestly, Levi will probably get Luke Augustine from Pitt in the second round, who's a Waynesburg guy, so that's even more PA down there low. Anybody else I missed here?
No, that's all for PA that I'm seeing. So, like you said, shout out Thompson. I think he could make some. I like Thompson's draw too, like through that. So like he could very well wrestle to that seed as well. That's not a fluke.
Yeah, it's kind of wide open. 184 could potentially be an all PA first round matchup for Carter Starachi. You got Caden Rogers for Lehigh in the pigtail round. Don't necessarily be deceived by this McDonald kid from Oregon State. He's got a 7-13 record, but I watched him in the Pac-12, and he's actually not bad, and he has a couple decent wins. I think he's like a freshman that maybe took some L's early, but has turned it on a little bit. So interesting pigtail there. Who else you got here from PA? Jared McGill from Edinburgh, 25 seed. I'm assuming. I don't know. I don't think so. I thought he was from a AA school up northwest, but maybe Fort LaBeouf or one of those. Who else you got here? Malachi Duval, George Mason, 21 seed. He's got Silas Allred from Nebraska. Fegley from Lock Haven. He's
Edmund
PA,
Ruth.
right? Yep. Fegley has, I believe, McAnally, which is tough draw. Some of these Lock Haven guys got some tough draws here early on.
I don't know what's got more to the matrix system, but they're not happy with him.
They're not happy with him. Edmund Ruth had a pretty good Big Ten tournament. He's a 10 seed. He's got Aiden Breenot from North Dakota State, who's 23. Max Hale, Downingtown West product. I believe he is
a match right there.
He's for Penn. He's an 18 seed, and he's got Fishback from NC State. That's a 15-18. Winner of that will get Keckeisen in the second round. So, yeah, tough second round match, but even that first one will be an interesting one. Pretty evenly matched guys, I think. Let's move on to 197. We'll wrap up these NCAA, quick run through the brackets here. If you see anybody that jumps out to you before I get there.
Beard.
Michael Beard, 5 seed, a former All-American at Penn State who then transferred to Lehigh and is now a 2-time All-American, looking for his third. He's got Peyton Thomas from Navy, 28. And I will say, honestly, I hate when the first round draw is of somebody from your same conference. Like, come on, you get to the NCAA tournament, you kind of want to wrestle somebody different. Like my junior year, my first round match was a kid from Central Michigan that I had wrestled 2 or 3 times already that year, and I just wrestled him, I think, at the MAC tournament or something like that. It's like, come on, man, give me somebody different. Like, even if you give me somebody better, just give me somebody different. I can wrestle somebody that's who I wrestled in the dual meet and the tournament. Yeah. What'd you say?
Illinois, Indiana, and then even 2 above it. There's Illinois, Indiana, and then I see Ohio State, Minnesota. Just
so many.
You could do different. It's poor.
You could. Yeah, it's poor. How about Tucker Hogan gets the at-large bid, the Daniel Boone product for Lock Haven. Again, a Lock Haven guy gets squeezed here with a 4-seed Josh Barr. I guess the only thing he can maybe have going for him is that we don't know the health of Barr. He hurt himself in the Constellation semis against Salazar from Minnesota at Big Tens. Hopefully for Penn State he is healthy, but you never know. Hogan obviously has him in the first round, which is a tough draw. Then the matchup we talked about potentially, you got Luke Stout and Mac Stout right next to each other in the bracket. Luke has O'Malley from Drexel, and Mac has Delegata from Cornell. Cornell qualified all 10 guys, by the way. I thought that was kind of shocking because they had a couple holes in their lineup this year. And then probably my favorite, or just at least my dark horse of the entire NCAA tournament, I think Dylan Bechtold for Bucknell has been looking pretty good. Just gave Beard a 14-8 match, I think it was, in the EIWA final. He's looking tough. He's got Novak, the 15 seed from Wyoming. If he wins that, he would have to go against Buchanan from Iowa. But Bechtold, you never know how a true freshman's going to do out there at NCAAs. It's maybe a little nerve-wracking for the first time, but Bechtold has been wrestling really well. I would not be shocked at all to see him win a couple matches for the Bison. And then let's go up to heavyweight and finish this off. Who do we got here? I'm probably going to forget at least one PA heavyweight because I feel like I always forget some of these names that, oh yeah, he was a PA kid. But 12 seed Nick Feldman has Bullock from Indiana.
And
did I miss one?
Also, I didn't know this, but is Gavin Hoffman the same Gavin Hoffman from Ohio State now wrestling heavyweight for Lockhaven?
The Jeff Upson lookalike, correct. Yes. Pull up, if you're listening to this, pull up a picture on Google Images of Jeff Upson and Gavin Hoffman and put them side by side, and you will thank me later. Yep, that's him. I don't know how he still has eligibility left because he last competed for Ohio State like 3 years ago, maybe. So
he was like wrestling in high school when I was in high school, so good for him.
Yeah, still at it somehow. I'm not really sure how the rules work anymore. I'm not sure that anybody does. Dayton Pitzer from Pitt, 10 seed. One of those guys that to this point in his career, it's been a little like, is he hurt? Is he dinged up? Because he was a superstar in high school. Hasn't quite figured it out to that level in college, but had a really good ACC tournament, beat Trumbull from NC State, who had only had like 2 or 3 losses all year, and they were to Wyatt Hendrickson, I think, and maybe Colton Schultz. So big win for Pitzer there. And then he wins it in the finals over Jimmy Mullen from Virginia Tech, who's also one of the top heavyweights and a super good young guy. So yeah, I don't know. Pitzer might be putting it together. I'm not sure. He's got a decent draw. He'd have a rematch with Trumbull in the round of 16 as well. Did I miss any other PA heavyweights? I feel like we went through those brackets quick enough that I'm sure we missed a couple guys, but just didn't jump out at me as I was scrolling through.
Yeah, more importantly, just like any how their draws looked, or if there's anything interesting about them. I'm sure we probably missed a few of them, but we touched up on the ones that seemed like at least interesting draws or whatever. Pitzer, like you said, on the come up, I feel like that ACC was the most complete he's looked, like you said, in his career. We're used to seeing him pin everybody. I think he pinned the dude in like 30 seconds in his senior year in the finals, and I don't know if it's the weight, like he's a little undersized or what, but finally, hopefully, for wrestling, that he's got it figured out, because I don't know, man. Even Hendrickson looked a little vulnerable, just won like 8-5 or whatever. So I wouldn't be, if he's firing on all cylinders, like you said, I feel like at the same time being able to be a hammer on top at heavyweight is like such an advantage. I can't remember the Central Michigan kid from a few, maybe 10 years, whatever, 8 years ago, 5 years ago.
Matt Stencil,
who's a freak on top. Yeah. And just a beast on top. And he was so good because of just the difference that he made on top.
Basically, if you can ride legs or like cradle or anything like that as a heavyweight, or like Hendrickson, I think, I'm not exactly sure what he does, but I think he just like bars people over or whatever. Just so strong and so athletic. But yeah, your average heavyweight just does like a little quad pod fat man stand up and gets out in 15 seconds because the guy can't ride him. So it's really, like you said, a huge benefit to your benefit in a huge way if you're a heavyweight that can get back points. So absolutely. Moving on, anything else we want to talk about NCAAs, past or present, before we move on?
No, just in Philly, last time in Philly,
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to say 2011. There were some fireworks in Philly the last time they had it. I wrote my pre-NCAA article for Win about, they told me to do a little preview of the NCAAs in Philly, and the first thing that popped in my head was like, there was some drama that happened the last time the NCAAs were in Philly.
Yeah, that year was crazy. That was like I don't know. It seems like it was like the craziest one of that, like the decade, but it might not have been. But like for me, it was the most memorable. You saw like David Taylor getting pinned. You saw Robles win.
How about Bubba Jenkins' celebration?
Yeah, the machine gun celebration. Exactly. That was just crazy. I feel like that finals and
that was the. I think I wrote about all this in my article, but that was the I was talking a little bit about just the memorable things that happened in that 2011 finals, which was my true freshman year. I didn't qualify that year, even though the guy I majored for the constellation semis in the conference tournament got the wild card below me. So that was a little sketchy, but I was there as just a spectator. But I was going to say there was a couple other memorable things, like the legendary picture of John Reeder flexing with the blood all over his face. That's like on every wrestling poster or meme. If you Google image it, I feel like that happened in the 2011 final. There was a couple other things. Robles was obviously a huge one, like you said.
Yeah. Is that where Ruth lost to Muchasegi and took third?
Yeah. Yep. Dake. I think it was the Dake Molinaro match in 2011. So Dake's second title at, I think people assumed he could go on to win 4, but I don't think anybody thought he'd go on to win 4 at a different weight class every single year. But at that point in his career, at least, he had 41 and 49, successfully accomplished that leg of the foursome. Yeah, there was some good stuff that happened out there. It was crazy, but it was honestly a great venue. I thought, like, it was. I didn't really have any complaints. Sometimes you go to NCAAs and it's like, what was that? Like, I always tell this story, but the 2014 NCAAs, when I was a redshirt junior, they had us warming up in our wrestling shoes in the convention center across the street, and then they would walk us across the busy road at a crosswalk in our wrestling shoes while we were in the hole to wrestle, because there wasn't enough room on the floor of the arena to have all the wrestlers there. Like, just bizarre stuff like that. Yeah, weird stuff. So I just thought, obviously I wasn't a competitor at the Philadelphia one, so I can't speak to that as much, but like the venue itself from a spectator standpoint, and like where the arena is in the city of Philadelphia, I thought, even though I don't know that there's like a ton within walking distance, like it just, I don't know, it was good. I liked it. It seemed like a good, I'm probably biased being from there. TC, you're from Delco, right? You were born and raised there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Philadelphia, but I'd claim Delco, and even living in Harrisburg, still claim Delco. It's on my resume and my LinkedIn page, everything like that. So
yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, if you're working in Delco and you're looking to hire, I am from Delco, but yeah, in general, though, I feel like too, the fans, like, it's in a perfect spot, because even if it was in Pittsburgh, I mean, Pittsburgh is sick too, because it's got.
It was in Pittsburgh in 2019. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Even though it's like, Pittsburgh was sweet too, because you got PA and Ohio, but I feel like Philly, you've got the Ohio people still coming. You got like the New York and the Jersey people coming.
Jersey.
And you need them. You might not want the New Jersey population there, but it's what you need as well, because they do.
Jeff wants them there.
Like
clearly.
They're good, yeah. Jeff wants them there. Jeff wants, his Zingo buddies to be there, and I feel like, the Jersey boys, they do need to be there. You need to hear that. It's good for the fans. We need a heel there, and they're the ultimate heel. So I feel like it couldn't be in a better location. Even though Philly, questionable city in terms of just everything outside of the wrestling event, but still
outside of Delco,
sweet.
Yeah.
And
also worth mentioning, I think it's kind of a cool thing that two legitimate possibilities here that could happen for Penn State in their home state. Obviously, Philadelphia and Penn State are very different, both geographically and everything else said. But Carter Starace looking to become the first ever 5-time national champion. Could do it in his home state, not only the state where he goes to college, but his home state, complete opposite corner of the state, by the way, but pretty cool. And also, Penn State has a very realistic chance to shatter an already shattered team scoring point record that they broke last year. I think they have a really good chance to do it again this year, even more drastically, which is crazy, but they could be doing that in their home state as well. So, two really cool things there. And one other thing I thought of before we sign off here is should give a little advertisement shout out for the PA Power crew. At least some of us are going to be doing a little maybe live show with Jeff Upson at some restaurant in Philly. TC, do you remember what it's called? there's probably a lot of restaurants in Philadelphia, so I'm not really narrowing it down or helping anybody. But if you look it up on his Facebook, Jeff PA Power Wrestling Upson.
I mean, the kids been advertising it a lot, and I'm sure that it's only going to get, the numbers are only going to be, skyrocketing as we approach the event. So I'm sure you'll hear about it a few times wherever the event is. But apparently,
it's Wednesday night. It's the Wednesday night little shindig, 7:00, I think. Little PA Power powwow. Maybe talk a little wrestling. Anybody wants to come check it out?
Best thing since sliced bread.
Yeah, you want to make fun of Jeff's Rutgers shirt or anything like that? Feel free to tag along. Like I said, I don't know the name of the restaurant, so I'm not really of any help to you there. But I know it's in Philadelphia, Wednesday at 7:00 at some eatery establishment of some sort. Yeah, so
some
maybe
unknown location.
Yeah, Jeff planned it, so
it's kind of like
surprising.
a fight. It's a fight club event, kind of where if you got the invite, you'll know where to go the day of potentially. But as of right now, just be thankful that you've been notified about it, and just expect something to be sent your way.
Yeah. Oh, and real quick, do you have a move for me? We're doing the move of the night game. I think last week I hit you with the head lever / snowplow / Pittsburgh / bulldog. It has about 15 million names for it. Or maybe I hit you with the cement job, cow catcher, snake, kindergarten killer. I can't remember. But do you have a move for me tonight before we jump off here?
Yeah, let's go with the I don't know. Let's go with the little snapper move. The little hand across the jaw move.
I am the person to ask
hand
about the snapper.
The jaw, jump forward.
Yeah, I am the person to ask. The James Fleming is what he's referencing, the snapper move, which, James Fleming was I don't think he ever won a PA State title, but he was got to be one of the best to never win because he was a 4-time placer. But he made a killing off of, he had a good cradle too, but he had pretty much one trademark move, which has, I don't know about at the high school level because really nobody does this move anymore or ever. He's invented it. And then it got, at the NCAA level, it got ruled illegal and you can't do it anymore. And they put that rule into effect the month after he graduated from college. He was a 2-time All-American at Clarion. And then within a month or two of him graduating, they made it illegal in college wrestling to do it. I had the pleasure of wrestling the snapping turtle twice in high school. So the summer after my sophomore year would have been the summer after his junior year. He's a year ahead of me at the Disney Duels. He was on Quest, I think, one of those Pittsburgh teams. And then that next season, I was a junior. He was a senior. I wrestled him at the Beast of the East. But Beast of the East, he just straight up cradled me and pinned me. So can't really complain there. I didn't taste the snapper. I didn't taste his sweaty forearm that time. But the first time I wrestled him at the Disney Duels, low singled him, took him down in 15 seconds, got on top, and I'm thinking in my head, this is James Fleming, the kid that everyone hypes up, and it's probably a little different these days where I don't know, maybe it wasn't, but with the amount of film people watch these days, I feel like everybody, if there was somebody like him now, everybody would know what his move is and be ready for it, cover your face. I had no idea. I just knew he was good. I didn't know what he was known for or what his trademark move was or whatever. I just knew oh, this kid's really good. He's already been I think he had already been a state finalist maybe at that point. But anyway, took him down 15 seconds, made the mistake of letting him get on top. I think he reversed me. So it's 2-2 with a minute left in the first period or whatever. Go out of bounds, get set on bottom. And I'm pretty sure he tech falled me in the first period. So within a minute, and this is back when it was only 2 or 3 near fall, I think he turned me 4 or 5 times. And no cradle, just the snapper move, which is, if you watch it as a fan or a coach or whatever, you don't know exactly what he was doing. It just looked like he had a head and arm choke and he was diving over the top in some weird way. It looked like really terrible technique, but and you'd probably be watching it thinking why is my kid going over for that terrible move? But really what it was he smothered
right?
No, he smothered your mouth and your nose with his forearm somehow, so you couldn't breathe. It was either you go, it's like a boa constrictor. Either you go over or you die, basically, because the ref had no idea what was going on. He wasn't stopping it. You had no oxygen. It's cutting off the circulation to your face. So, like I said, he's got his forearm over your face, your mouth, and your nose, and he's locked like over your face somehow. I don't know how he did it. But then he dove over the top of you, and like, I don't know how he did it, dude. It was just a crazy move. But all I remember was thinking,
like the thumb was in the jaw,
something like
too,
that.
So it
yes,
hurt as well.
It hurt, and you couldn't breathe. It was,
who weighs like 103, put me in that move in high school, like to show me, and flipped me right over, and it was absolutely embarrassing. But if that little turd can flip you over, then that move,
It felt like somebody was holding your head underwater. It was not only that level of you can't breathe, but it was that level of panic. Like, I remember being like, oh my God, like the oxygen is going to your it's not going to your brain, and you can't breathe. So I'm like, I got to go over. And then he'd let you up for air, and then he'd just dunk your head right back in the water pretty much. So, kudos to him for developing some kind of a crazy assassin like ninja move like that. It took him really far, obviously, in his career, but that move is now illegal, at least in college. I don't know about high school. But yeah, either way, that's my snapper. I don't know that I've known anybody before, during, or after that's ever hit that move really the same way. But yeah, anyway, that made me also think of another quick story. We're going long here, but I got passed out in until recently the match was still on Flow. It might not be there anymore. I got passed out in the NHSCA high school national sophomore semifinals in 10th grade by this California kid. I shot in. He put me in a front headlock, and he just, again, I don't know if this is legal or not, but he just locked my head and arm in a front headlock, but instead of having it like locked here, he locked it like this, and he just choked me until literally, if you watch the video, I go completely on my belly, and my arm is just, where's the camera? My arm is just dangling like this, and the ref's just watching it happen, and he just turns me over, and I'm just completely passed out, like asleep, and he pins me, and the ref just let it go. And I remember a couple people commenting on the video and being like, that kid is literally passed out, and the ref just like, oh, yep, there's a pin. So it was kind of embarrassing, yeah, but also not. The whole point of that tournament is to like get recruited by college guys, so like it wasn't the best output for me there in that match against old James Cook from California.
Yeah, I mean, hey, just sometimes you got to get victimized by that. That's all it is.
Sometimes you got to fight for air, and that's what I did. Yep. So that's a
shout out. That's a snapper. Good shout out to snapper, really.
And to James Cook, yeah. And then
James Fleming, James Cook, same thing.
I got Jamesed, yeah. And then after that, I remember on the video somebody commented on it with the name Grandma Rosemary, and it said, "Congratulations, James. We are so proud of you. Love, Grandma." So yeah, that was I got his grandma was on Flow Wrestling apparently, showing some love, or I was getting trolled one way or the other. But anyway, so that's just a fun little tidbit there, getting choked out. Maybe one of us will get choked out at the little PA Power Shindig in Philadelphia next Wednesday night. But until then, I don't believe
Delco is possible. So
yeah, the brick throw in Delco. Weirdly, like you said, after Jeff did about 6 PA Power high school state previews, I don't think Jeff's doing any NCAA previews. So I think this is it. So I'm sorry to the PA wrestling fans. They're stuck with us as a consolation prize. This is the best you're going to get in terms of PA Power little previews for the NCAA tournament. But it is what it is. So we'll maybe see you next Wednesday. Probably not, because we're not really sure where it is. But till then, hope everybody has a good, safe trip to Philly if you're making the trip or just watching at home. And we'll be back maybe next week or the next week to recap the event and just talk about all the stuff that went on and maybe some good, funny stories about Jeff.
And if you're in Philadelphia for the area, if you're from the area or not from the area, please check out the beautiful scenery in Delco. Check out the real estate. I could definitely get you in touch with some people. Please just soak it all in, take in that Delco air. Really just kind of see what it's like to be a Delconian, and it doesn't mean you have to be from there to be a Delconian. We all have a little bit in us, and everybody needs to embrace that. So that's all really. That's what it's about. This nationals, it's bigger than just the NCAA championships.
It's a mind, body, spirit type thing.
Exactly.
All right.
1,000%.
Signing off. It's the Upson-No-Good podcast. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks.